Today there was a protest at the BBC over their transphobia, which in itself is another story. But I thought I would focus on my approach to the transgender issues, and I'm fully 100% behind the protests at the BBC, considering it is the major news organisation in the United Kingdom right now. That doesn't only have influence in the United Kingdom, but influence worldwide. Unfortunately, our more progressive channels in the UK, the Channel 4, doesn't have that wide range of influence in the entire world. So it's been a year for sure. But the focus of this video isn't the BBC. It's more about how I approach certain issues on the transgender issue, because there are certain things I could talk about with regards to the transgender issue that I don't really touch upon. I think largely because I'm not one of those influencers, not one of those YouTubers that likes to go by the algorithm, which is probably why my channel suffers when it comes to social issues like the transgender issue. But one of the major things over the last couple of years has been this woman, J.K. Rowling, and I don't talk about her. And I'm asked why. What is it about her that makes me not want to talk about her? Well, other than the fact that she's very litigious, I honestly don't see a point. She has power, she has influence, yes, but at the same time, I never really got into Harry Potter. I never really got into her books per se. So there's not a lot I could literally say about her as a person or her as an author, because it has no profound effect on me. As a trans woman, yeah, her commentary does affect me personally. Does affect me personally. So I could rage fit about it. But on a personal level, when it comes to her literature, when it comes to the impact she had on the LGBT community and on children's lives and stuff like that, it really means very little to me. And to be quite frank, I think at this point it's pretty obvious we know she's a transphobe, despite the fact that she goes around denying it. It's like a racist that turns around and says they're not racist. I mean, how many bigots do you know will actually admit to what they are? They won't do that. So don't expect any different from from J.K. Rowling or anybody who supports her. They will all turn around and say, "Oh, we're not against trans people. We just don't think that they're men. We just don't think they have any place in women's society," and that kind of thing. It's not like it's not obvious to the rest of us that they're transphobic. But one of the main reasons that I don't really touch upon this woman at all is it's already been said by better people than me. Jesse Gender, for example, and ContraPoints, have made the arguments pretty succinctly, I think. So having me add to that commentary, I don't know what I could add that hasn't already been said at this point. She's dangerous. Excuse me. She's definitely dangerous, that I'll grant, but I really want to kind of touch on the larger issues that she comments on, rather than her herself who comments on it. I guess largely because I don't particularly want to give her a platform, which is kind of ironic because I'm talking about her now, right here. I mean, I understand why people are upset. I understand why a lot of Harry Potter fans are probably upset. It kind of really affects them, because for the longest time, this woman had a profound impact on their lives, and and it changed them for the better, only to turn around and see that the author of these very successful novels, a very successful franchise, turned out to be just as dangerous and just as bigoted as other people they have come across in their lives, as the bullies they came across in their lives. So, yeah, I don't exactly see a point in my discussing J.K. Rowling transphobia as a whole, because in the long run, why is she any different from any other transphobe? What does she actually contribute to the argument that hasn't already been contributed to, other than attention? You know, and you may have noticed that's the only way she's getting attention these days. Very little is spoken about J.K. Rowling these days, unless she's having a one big spat over the trans ladies, you know, and it's ridiculous. Yeah, there was that article, and there's no point in answering the question what was so transphobic about her essay anymore, because they know, the people who support her know what was transphobic about it. It's just an attempt to bully us or to gaslight us into just remaining quiet about it, not raising issue to it, because woe betide if, you know, if their hero is revealed any more for the bigoted woman she already is. It's already been said. There's nothing more that I or anybody else can add to her essay or add to any of her tweets at this point. It's just there for her to get attention. And you'll notice that a lot of what she says always comes out when she's either got a book coming out or a film coming out. It's always exactly the same way. The only way she can get attention from her fan base, which is largely transphobic at this point. There are very few people who aren't transphobic who are on J.K. Rowling's side at this point. You know, so I just don't see the point. I'm not going to be watching Fantastic Beasts. I haven't, you know, I only really just sat through Fantastic Beasts in the past, or Harry Potter in the past, because other people were watching it. But personally, I've not been inclined to actually go out and watch Harry Potter or to watch Fantastic Beasts. The story doesn't particularly interest me. And I'll be frank. When I did read Harry Potter to my kid, I was kind of disturbed by some of the imagery within it. Let's put aside the obvious anti-Semitic views of Jews and goblins in the book, which was, I'm going to say, probably accidental on her half. I'm not going to turn around and say she's anti-Semitic by choice or anything like that, but the fact that she chose that imagery shows that there is some ingrained establishment bigotry there, which is kind of unfortunate. But the thing that really disturbed me the most about what she wrote was she compared lycanthropy to the AIDS epidemic, which was not only disturbing but also interesting take. It is almost like a 1980s gay scare take on lycanthropy. Like, for example, the good werewolf, whose name escapes me because, like I said, I only read the book to my kids, so I have no idea what, you know, I have no idea who the characters are. But the good guy had to take a potion in order to teach the kids. So literally had to inoculate himself, because apparently being in the presence of kids was a danger to the kids because he had lycanthropy, or if we're going to argue the AIDS analogy, he had AIDS. You know, which is disturbing in itself. It's a disturbing analogy in itself. But then there was the bad werewolf guy who literally kidnapped kids and deliberately infected them with lycanthropy. And and I have an issue with that. It reminds me so much of the 1980s AIDS scare, when AIDS was supposed to be a gay disease. I remember an episode of EastEnders where Doc Cotton knew met a person with HIV, not with AIDS, but with HIV, and she over panicked by going into the Queen Vic with her own glass and insisting that would be the only glass she would drink out of, because she didn't want to catch AIDS or HIV from drinking. From drinking. She came round to a better way of looking at how HIV works, but that was a very poignant moment for me to understanding how HIV is actually transmitted, and it's not through drinking through glasses, at a bar. And there are very, very rare cases of people actually going out there and deliberately infecting people with AIDS. There has been a couple of cases where people have refused to inform their partners that they have HIV or that they have AIDS. That has been a thing, but it's not this rampant thing that that J.K. Rowling seems to have put in her novels as an analogy. And that in itself, it wasn't her transphobia that bothered me. It was her inability to understand how her analogies are twisted, how they work. So I've had a problematic relationship with J.K. Rowling's books long before her rhetoric against trans people was actually a thing. I don't exactly think that she's a tremendous writer, a successful writer, but I wouldn't say that she's a tremendous writer. And it's quite clear that she has a very limited understanding as to how the real world functions, as her analogies suggest. So, if I was to have brought this up during the Harry Potter era, when everything was at its high, I probably would have been maligned and put down with those very serious concerns about how she presents very serious issues that affect the LGBTQ community and the sexual positive community. So, yeah, that was my major problem with J.K. Rowling at the time. Her transphobia is obviously a new thing, that has come to light. It's obviously been there a very long time, but it's still relatively new with regards to the rest of us. I think at the end of the day, if I'm going to discuss these controversial subjects, I would, if I'm going to discuss J.K. Rowling in the future, I would rather focus on her writings on the fictional level, and how her fiction has been influenced by her understandings of the real world, rather than focus on her real-time, real-life bigotry that we see coming out from her right now. So yeah, J.K. Rowling, I really don't have anything to say about her transphobia personally. It hasn't affected me emotionally. I don't feel like I've missed out on anything. I don't think that on a personal level it's going to affect me emotionally. I understand it's going to affect other fans of the Harry Potter universe more so than that. So yeah, if I do focus on J.K. Rowling in the future, it's likely to be more in her fictional takes on how she, on her, because I'm a sociologist, and that's what I do on this channel. I focus on on sociological success and failures of certain media tropes. Why something is successful, why something isn't successful, why something is controversial, and why something isn't controversial, and how society relates to our media. And that's what I would like to stick to with regards to J.K. Rowling, I guess. So, yeah. She's meaningless to me in the long run. The only thing that concerns me is how much power and influence that she has. And as and when that becomes an issue, I will allude to it from time to time. But right now, in America, we're dealing with very real issues with regards to anti-trans bills in several states around the country, and that affects me heavily. What's going on? Don't you just love that? Don't you just love that? Hey, behave. Yeah. And what's going on back home in the UK affects me personally as well, because one day I'm going to probably have to go home. One day I'm going to have to go back to the UK and face that as I am now. I'm certainly going to have to face family members, you know, as to who I am now. Very transphobic family members, but back home. So, yeah. J.K. Rowling, on a personal level, doesn't affect me. It doesn't hit me as personal, because I was never a fan of her works. And I always had issue with her works long before this even came up. So, yeah, that's it. I have nothing else to add to that. So, if you like what I put on this channel, if you like my commentary, if you like my reviews, if you like anything that I do, please hit the like button and subscribe. If you're a transphobe, please, by all means, make a comment. I kind of love the hate that I get here sometimes from transphobes. I find it very funny that they can come here and think that they can change my mind. It's kind of funny, out of the hundreds of people, telling me that there's no way I can be a female, which is not what I'm going for. They're the ones that are going to change my mind. They're the ones that are going to stop me. They're the ones that are going to make me not be trans somehow. I don't know how they think that, how they come to that conclusion, but I don't know. But anyway, like, subscribe. There's a Patreon if you want to use it. I don't know. I mean, depends if the algorithm even gets your attention. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen. Bye.